Capital. This is your host, Ken McClinton. You are watching us on the TheExceptionalConservative.com. We are the best in urban conservative news and talk. Yes, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. And I am just gleeful tonight to have the opportunity to talk to this gentleman here, John D. O'Connor, constitutional scholar and the principal at O'Connor and Associates out in San Francisco, California, IA, who's had, decades of success. There are lawyers of his own peer group that imagine them having the success that John D. O'Connor has had. But he's tonight talking with us about the first, the second, the entire Bill of Rights, the entire Constitution, which is in complete grip of terror by those who happen to use the coronavirus as their way of trying to reorganize our country from the intention of our founding fathers. And so, why not have the best constitutional scholar on the West Coast, certainly, with us tonight, John O'Connor? It is a tremendous honor to have you here tonight. Sir, you mentioned earlier that our First Amendment has been abused by the press. And you gave significant exempling of that in terms of recent. But I want to go over one particular thing with you regarding the First Amendment and the privileges. And I use the term privileges, not rights. The privileges of the press. One of those great privileges is to have access to facts and figures and to be able to report that on a daily basis to the American people. Why is what they're doing right now infringing on what our founders intended the press to be?
Well, here's if you look at the Federalist Papers, what James Madison said was liberty is to factionalism. They didn't like factionalism. Liberty is to factionalism as air is to fire. Liberty is going to get people into factions. However, there were remedies for it. In other words, can we smooth it out? Because people are going to get crazy and go one way on one thing. Now, what was the remedy for it? The remedy was the First Amendment. And the remedy was supposed to be that the press, at least together en masse as a whole, would give us all the facts.
Yeah.
And when the press gives us all the facts, then people can see that there might be any one particular faction might be greedy, another one might be corrupt, another one might be narrow. And we can see it, and we can make our decisions, and these things are exposed, and we don't get into mobocracy. We don't act as irrational mobs because the press is keeping us informed.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem with today. It not used to be in those days. The press was, thousands of people with printing presses who would go out and give handbills and so forth and so on. And there are different forms of that. Then newspapers sprung up and so forth, and many radio stations sprung up. Now, today, we have an awful lot of our communications controlled by national televised media and just a few national newspapers. And guess what? The public, a large sector of the public, a lot of people who listen to shows like yours get some facts, and there are a few people that have there's some good sites on the internet, but not everybody's like that. Not everybody has the time. And you find people come home, they turn on their TV set, and they find the same opinions. They must be right.
Yep.
And people are just kept in the dark. They're like mushrooms. They're kept in the dark, covered with manure. And so it's really abuse of the First Amendment. The media today incites, sustains, causes toxic factionalism, incites mobocracy. What happened with the Ukraine gate? That was mobocracy. That was an emotional, toxic, factional response to a phone call that, okay, you could talk about it over the dinner table, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but come on.
Yeah.
We're going to spend all our time. Meanwhile, we have a virus coming in, and these guys are voting on the floor, giving these sonorous speeches. So what I'm saying to you is that I believe that that's tremendous abuse. Now, what happens when President Trump, in his gruff way, talks about fake news? What he's saying is, be honest. But what do? They immediately start acting like wounded puppies. Oh, how can you criticize us? You can't criticize us. Well, of course, they don't think about the fact that, guess what? Who else has the First Amendment right? Well, I think the president does, doesn't he? Can these guys not stand criticism? And others, they want to hold everybody accountable. But do you see the media holding themselves accountable?
Not at all.
No, they don't. Mm-hmm. They're not doing their duty. We give them licenses over the airwaves. We give them this way of, monopolize. It's really probably a monopoly. And I think Attorney General Barr called the mainstream media monolithic. Mm-hmm. Very secular. By the way, very secular. It's sort of a secular religion,
Yes.
It's not. It's very, very. It promotes this type of thinking. Nothing. That's fine if it was balanced with other thinking. That's fine. You can do whatever you want to think, whatever you want to think. But let's have a marketplace of ideas. But let's not have monolithic mainstream media that promotes this sort of strange secular, almost a secular religion. It's an ideology. Whereas there's so many people in the country that are not ideological. They just want the facts and to decide them on a case-by-case basis. We talked about conservatives. I think so many people like me identify as conservative. Really, I'm just a guy who wants the facts.
Just the facts.
That's all. I want to make up my mind on any particular case. Is that extreme?
No. No. You just want to be able to rationally think, not irrationally think, critically think, not with theatrical thinking. You don't want thespianism in terms of the line of making decisions in life. Theater is one thing. Real life is another, and unfortunately, our press is more theatrical today than it is of any good to most men. And I thank you for the kind words you say about our particular network, because we really pride ourselves in giving people the truth, the fact, the figures. So that's why we have great guys like you come on. But there,
let me,
uh-huh. And go ahead.
Finish. What I was going to say is this. Here's what one of the effects is and I'm sorry, I just jumped up because this is so personal to me.
Yes, sir.
I've got a family with very bright people in it. They're very well educated. My sister and brother-in-law are good friends with the Obamas in Hyde Park, so forth and so on. But what I find is that the media so incites their listeners, their audience, their readers, that to get them angry. And so it's very difficult to have a rational, calm discussion and an exchange of ideas. Mm-hmm. I find that very distressing, because the media incites people into thinking there's only one way, and that everybody who thinks differently, probably most of the listeners to your show, those are evil people.
Yeah.
And it's not like the other people are just wrong or we can learn from them. No, they're evil. Therefore, it's okay to just shut them out, to yell at them, to cancel them. It's a cancel culture. We cancel them. And that is something, this is the oddity of it. We're supposed to have a free press, and yet the free press is promoting a cancel culture where there are just certain ideas that you can't talk about. Of course you can't. I mean, you can't talk about God.
Yeah.
You can't talk about values. You can't talk about the founding fathers or anything like that. And that doesn't necessarily make you right if you want to talk about those, but shouldn't people be allowed to talk about them?
Exactly.
But it's almost like those things are hidden. They're covered up. There's a big red X through. And so what we're having a supposedly free, we're free and we're without fear or favor. And yet they promote a line that is really distressing. And here's what gets me. It's one thing if it was just the promotion of views, if the promotion of opinions. But in order to do what they're doing, you have to cover up facts.
Yes.
And so you will find, people will talk about, the Russian gate or the Ukraine gate, and people will just ignore certain facts that completely fizzle something out. Mm-hmm. And so in order to do this, to incite the viewers or the audience or whatever, you have to leave out facts and you have to distort facts. And now what you're getting is Now, I don't call it fake news. I'm a lawyer. I call it deceitful news.
Yes, there you go. And you know what? It would be great if the press would just say, ideologically, we are leftists. We agree with China. We agree with Tehran. We agree with North Korea. We agree with that line of thinking. And now we're going to present to you the news based on what we think. If they were just out front and say that, Americans could make their own decisions in terms of what they would want. But they are deceitful, and that deceit reigns through what the governmental bodies have done in terms of using our Constitution. I want to get to you on the Second Amendment real quick, and then I'm going to go back to the first. There are,
Sure.
there are, and I don't know where it is in the Constitution. I went through all of the amendments. I didn't see it, but somewhere in the Constitution it clearly states that a mayor has the authority by executive order and declaration of an emergency to shut down gun stores and to limit the amount of gun sales and ammo that people can purchase. Now, you far wiser than I, where in the Constitution did this come up?
Well, I've got my glasses on and magnifying and a magnifying glass as well. I can't find it. It's in here somewhere, maybe, but I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I should get some tweezers out.
Exactly.
You know, but no, but we love it. I love it that people love to find things in the Constitution that aren't quite there, and that's supposed to be kind of cool. So what you do is you come up with a way to do it and put it in there. Now, reasonable inferences are fine. When you talk about the Fourth Amendment search and seizure, well, they didn't have electronic searches back then, but we can adopt that and say, okay, electronic search is a search, and we adopt the Constitution to modern technology. But that's a far different thing than trying to read something in the Constitution that just plain isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we find, and that's the way a lot of people are measured. If you don't think that way, there are certain people that aren't going to appoint you to something. And
Exactly. But John,
I don't know what you think the chances of me. Yeah.
Yeah, John, there are Americans out here right now that have. I have an intern that tells me I'm overthinking this thing. I've had other people that said, just calm down, Ken. They will let you have that right back. But where did they get the power to take the right in the first place? And if they do have that power, does our Constitution even exist?
Well, that's a real good question. And what I would say is this. I do think that the government, even the local governments, which of course are, sort of the federal system leaves state government to itself, as long as it in turn doesn't violate the federal Constitution, and so forth. But I think you can justify a lot of things on emergency measures if they're truly emergency and they're short. If they're short term, during the San Francisco earthquake fire, which is really more of a fire than an earthquake. Yeah. The courts have upheld the fact that the authorities went out and blew up rows of houses, actually exploded them so that they would make a fire break. The courts upheld that. They said you can do that. It's an emergency. The place was burning. Now you carry that out. Can you do that in normal times? No. And even Lincoln suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War, and afterwards the decisions of the court on some of the stuff Lincoln did, they sort of slapped his wrist down for that. But if there is, I think there are two things. I think you can probably have emergency police powers. They can only go so far. There's a limit to them, and especially time. And you can't make anything like this permanent. You have the president has some national security powers too. He can probably, in times of war, take over industries and so forth. That's been, again, it's a take. You have to compensate for it. But so there are some extreme powers that government has. But I think ever since Woodrow Wilson, it's been sort of the thought that government should just be able to do anything it wants. We should have this big administrative state run by experts that can come in and tell us. I'll give you something right now. Now, this is not quite the Second Amendment, but let me give you an example.
Okay.
You and I right now are expelling carbon dioxide from our bodies, and right now the trees, I look outside my window, the trees are breathing in carbon dioxide, and that's the way the system works. Can you believe that during the Obama administration, the EPA decided that carbon dioxide was a lethal substance that should be regulated by the EPA? It's probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. You can regulate carbon dioxide? I mean, come on. Okay, what's next? You're gonna. How about oxygen and nitrogen?
There we go.
Okay, now you've got just about everything, and it becomes extreme. And once you say that, and now, I have friends who, one friend has a pasture, and in the spring he gets water puddles there.
Yeah.
And of course the EPA claims that's wetlands. They can take over that, and they can keep you from building a barn within so many feet of the wetlands. So we have this, and it's really hard because there's a natural growth to the administrative state that I think really is encroaching on our freedom. So I think one of the things that President Trump has done that people haven't really given enough credit for is he's tearing up regulations. He's saying, look, we're over-regulated. To a certain extent, the whole idea is we will make good decisions with our own money, our own time, our own family. Let us be free to the extent we can be free. That's the notion. When the country was being founded, Adam Smith came out with his book that sort of proved that, and that's really so we should. There's certain things that we can regulate certain things, but let's try to keep a light touch here. Mm-hmm. And we've gone way too far in our government, and this emergency for some people, it's like catnip. They can't wait to just tell us all what to do. Exactly. And I noticed that the people on TV that are telling us that we have to shelter in place for the next 17 years, they all are people that are on salary someplace.
Exactly.
And they're not worried about their job. They're not people that actually go out and do something for a living, like build something or what have you, or serve at a restaurant. People that are really bringing goods and services to their fellow man.
John?
So it's a balancing. Yeah.
John, that's another thing that people are scared, the bejeebers have been scared out of people, that government has the right to quarantine you. And tomorrow, on Friday morning, about 8 a.m., we're going to get the Department of Labor's report on the number of people that will be filing unemployment claims. It's going to be estimated as high as 4 million people. And then the following week, an additional 13 million people will be filing unemployment claims. And that's because government said that you can't be in assemblage of more than 10 people. And even in Northern Virginia tonight, the Governor Northam, has made an edict that churches cannot assemble any longer lest they be fined $2,500 for assembling. I'm just trying to figure out, where did they garner all of these new constitutional powers as a result of an emergency? And the last thing in that question is, should we fear, once bureaucracies have the power, that they will not release us from that restraint? Well,
I think we do face a real issue here, and the rubber's going to meet the road in a couple of weeks. I think we can all hold out. I don't know when Easter is, but exactly, I think it's in a couple of weeks. I'm losing track of time in my fortress of solitude here. But
I know the feeling.
But at some point, we're going to peep out of our hole and see how many more weeks of winter we got. I think the rubber's going to meet the road when we try to get back to normal and see there will be a real fight with people who just can't wait to restrict us all, and those who are saying, let's see what we can do. I'm an older guy. I can practice law a lot from my home office. There are a lot of people that can do that, and I think maybe the older folks should try to self-quarantine or social distance. But the country's got to get back to work at some point, and hopefully we will buy time. We will have bought time. We will have medicines to treat. We'll know what our rates really are. We'll know what we have to do, and maybe it's going to be a slow process. But we just can't do this forever because everything's going to come tumbling down. That's the problem.
Exactly.
And you have to balance everything.
Exactly. John O'Connor with us, constitutional scholar, O'Connor and Associates. Basically, calm down, everybody. Wait and see. But after Easter, and I think that deadline that Donald Trump gave us is a very good one. After Easter, if people are still acting in this particular manner, we're going to have some issues in America. John, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It won't be the last time. We'll be calling upon you in the next few weeks as we deal with these particular constitutional issues. And you have an amazing firm in San Francisco. Can you tell everybody about it?
Well, Kenneth, I just wrote a book called Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism. I'm a lawyer here in San Francisco, but one of my interests is writing about the media, and especially about things like Russiagate and Ukrainegate really bother me, these abuses by government. And so it all started with Watergate. I've got that in my book. I'd urge some of your listeners to check it out, and you'll see some reviews online. And I think I'm getting at the issues that you and I have been talking about tonight. It's all of a piece, it's all of a piece. And it's how people are trying to control us through deceitful messaging is my overall view of this thing. And it's been really a blast talking to you. Let's talk again, and let's talk about the NBA when we can.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Your stories about Dean Nelson alone, I'm very much interested in. What a tremendous honor to have with us a constitutional scholar and the author of Postgate, How the Washington Post Betrayed Deep Throat, Covered Up Watergate, and Began Today's Partisan Advocacy Journalism by John O'Connor. What a tremendous pleasure. I'm gonna try to get you back on in about a couple of weeks. We'll work that out because I really want you to come back. I've enjoyed talking with you. You're a great guy, and I really thank you so much for all you have done for our nation.
Ken, thanks a lot. It's been a blast. Anytime. Love to talk to you. Love your show.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care now. Ladies and gentlemen, John O'Connor with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, will be going to commercial break. But I hope that you understand that we are being abused by the media. Not by TECN TV, but by media that seeks to deceive you. Postgate, ladies and gentlemen, you got to go get that book. We'll be right back with more of the best right after this. Yes, we are not a republic. We are the best in urban conservative news and talk, TheExceptionalConservative.com. And one other quick thing. You may have noticed that Fox News looks a whole lot like our network shows. Maybe the Exceptional One was ahead of the curve. No need to flatten it. We'll be right back.